unfolding in Azerbaijan between the Azerbaijanis and the Armenians. We're going to talk about that on today's Hot Zone.
This is the Hot Zone. Engaging with the news in a whole new way, international war correspondent Chuck Holton brings insight into areas of crisis and lets you help those affected.
Chuck Holton here. Thanks for watching the Hot Zone. You know, there's still been so much going on around the world, and I haven't had a chance to go cover it personally this year very much because of the COVID crisis, but that's about to change. I'm hoping to get over to Azerbaijan and cover this crisis that's unfolding over there. Now, you might not have heard much about it. You wouldn't. I wouldn't hold that against you because the news right now is all about the presidential race and Amy Coney Barrett and all that kind of stuff. But the bottom line is there are a lot of people hurting over there, and there's up to 70,000 people that have been displaced already, hundreds that have been killed, and so I'm trying to work it out to make a trip over there at the end of October. We'll see if that happens. In the meantime, I've got a great guest for us to talk to us about the crisis and help break it down. I wanted to bring in Anna Asvatsa-Turian. She's an activist and an author and a former refugee, Armenian refugee from Azerbaijan, to kind of help us understand a little bit better about this issue. So, Anna, thank you for coming on with us. And just start by kind of explaining this whole crisis and the history behind it, but keep it real simple because I'm not a real I'm not very well versed in this conflict. So help me out.
Well, thank you for having me. It is not a simple conflict, but I'll try to do my best. At the end of World War I, Turks perpetrated Armenian genocide, and against their own Armenian minorities. So between 1915 and 1923, there were about 1.5 million Armenians that were killed and expelled from Turkey. At the end of that episode, the Soviet Union kind of came in and brokered several interesting deals where Armenians could live under Soviet rule under certain conditions. And so that's
in Azerbaijan, right?
In Armenia. There was a Republic of Armenia and a Republic of Azerbaijan. And Stalin, to create a tension between and kind of a leverage that situation, gave a piece of Armenian land called Artsakh, and it's Nagorno-Karabakh everywhere else in the world, but we call it Artsakh, to Azerbaijan. Throughout its history, it's been majority Armenian population, which are Christian ethnic Armenians. And during the Soviet Union, it ranged between 90s to 70% Armenian population. At the collapse of the Soviet Union, and really what collapsed the Soviet Union was people of Nagorno-Karabakh using constitutional, the Soviet constitution to secede from Azerbaijan and rejoin Armenia. When that happened in 1988, I was 10 years old, and a week or 10 days later, after the people of Artsakh democratically tried to secede and held a referendum, people in Azerbaijan of Armenian descent started getting murdered. So ethnic cleansing started happening in Azerbaijan itself to stop this movement. There was nowhere for us to go, really, and we fled to Armenia, which was at the time blockaded by Turkey, by Azerbaijan, and by Georgia. Turkey at the time was an inspiration to Azerbaijan to continue the Armenian genocide. In fact, when my grandfather survived 1915, he survived 1918, he was 8 years old. And then we survived the 80s. So in my family's history, this anti-Armenian genocide occurred 3 times. For the last 30 years, the conflict was frozen, where a ceasefire was reached, but it was never really resolved. So Artsakh has been blockaded by Azerbaijan, and not recognized by the rest of the world. And on September 27th, after 30 years of provocative actions on the borders, with help of Turkey, sponsored financially by the oil revenue that Azerbaijan enjoys, and that anti-Armenian genocidal rhetoric of Turkey, 105 years later after the Armenian Genocide, it's happening again. And they are bombing civilians, and it's been going on for a little over 2 weeks now.
So I've seen some footage of civilian areas being carpet bombed, and that's obviously very bad. A couple of hundred people probably have been killed already. It seems to me like there's a big religious component to this, especially now, as Turkey is becoming more and more extremist Muslim, and if the Armenians in Artsakh, is that what you?
Yes.
If the Armenians there are by and large Christian, then they're essentially doing the same thing to them as they're doing in Syria to the Christians there. Is that accurate?
Absolutely. I mean, in the 80s, religious component was not so strong for us because the Soviets, would not allow any practice of any religion, although we had our churches and we continue to practice in hiding. But
in secret.
In secret, right. But now, with the fact that it's the same ISIS jihadists that Turkey just transported to Azerbaijan. There's, independent analysts that are analyzed footage, and they are jihadists that were just shipped to Azerbaijan to fight this fight. They're the same ones that killed Syrian Christians, Iraqi Christians, and are now doing that in the first nation, a Christian nation in the world, is Armenia. And
so folks, just to give you a little background, where I do have a little more experience from Syria, when Raqqa fell and ISIS was pushed out of Raqqa, in the space of a very short period of time, about 40,000 ISIS fighters just disappeared and reappeared wearing Turkish uniforms. And now they're called the Free Syrian Army, the FSA. These are the people who are being recruited and shipped into Azerbaijan. It's about a 9 or 10 hour drive from there, overland through Turkey. And they are being paid up to $1,000 a month, which is a massive amount of money for people coming from the civil war, the conflict in Syria. And so there's a lot of just mercenary incitement or mercenary reason for them to want to go and fight in Azerbaijan, but also specifically because they can go kill more Christians. And that's what they've been doing in Syria. That's what they are now doing in Armenia.
Absolutely. And in Artsakh itself, Armenia is the size of Delaware. So you take a tiny portion of that. There are 363 ancient churches that go back 1,000 years. And from the last time I saw on Twitter, the human rights ombudsman of Artsakh mentioned that cultural and religious sites are being bombed right now. So we know one of the cathedrals was bombed, and it was a symbol of our resilience in Shushi a few days ago. So it's a beautiful cathedral now, almost in ruins, just for no reason, right? So I'm assuming that more churches are being bombed. But to me, most concerning is the fact that Turkey is using not only mercenaries but suicide drones to bomb civilians. And these are civilians I know personally. One of my friends is tweeting and texting me from basements for 2 weeks because they're literally just, and this is Europe. This is not Middle East, where you kind of Americans come to expect violence like this. This is not normal, and European Union has been largely silent. United States have issued a statement, but I feel like their hands are tied because they are a negotiator of this conflict along with Russia and France. So there's silence. The genocide is beginning, second genocide of Armenians.
So how does Russia fit into this? Because in my understanding, Russia and Turkey are kind of at odds, but am I right about that?
And you cut out. Can you repeat that again? I'm sorry.
I said Russia. My understanding is that Russia and Turkey are at odds in this conflict as well as in Syria and elsewhere. Is that correct? What's Russia's place in this?
Russia's place is interesting. Yes, there is a conflict, historical conflict between Russia and Turkey. The reason the Russians have agreements with Armenia is Armenia is a buffer zone between Russia and Turkey. We are completely aware of that. This is a strategical, situation for Russia. But in terms of, I think what Russia is doing, it is. It has agreements to protect militarily Armenia, but Artsakh is not part of Armenia. It's by the UN resolutions, it's still part of it and not recognized by any country. It's still part of Azerbaijan. So they're using that as an excuse. I think that there's also this anti-Russian sentiment since the last revolution. So I think Russia is trying to teach Armenia a lesson that if you're in my backyard, you have to play by my rules. So it's very unfortunate, but they are our really only ally in this situation because Russia has military bases in Armenia, and they really do not want to escalate this any further than it has, because I think it will become a regional war rather than Armenia versus Azerbaijan war. But at the same time, they're selling weapons to both sides.
What is the demographic religious makeup of Azerbaijan? Is it Muslim or what?
It is Muslim, but I would say that it is not because of the Soviet history. It's not largely practiced. I think, culturally and historically, they have been Muslim. They speak the same language as Turks. They call themselves cousins or brothers, but they are ethnically different. They were nomadic Tatar population that came to the region and were settled by the Soviets. The name Azerbaijan was created in 1923. This country didn't exist before. And the minority, Lezgin, which is Yazidis, and Talish populations have been abused in Azerbaijan. And in fact, some of my friends were reporting that they killed Azeri soldiers, the names on their uniforms that they've seen personally in the very beginning of the war were largely minority, Talish and Lezgin's names. They're putting them in a front line. So they're not only committing genocide against Armenians, but they're killing off their own minorities by putting them in the military.
Wow. And so, you say they're Yazidis there?
They are called Lezgins. Yes, they are the similar religious background, Yazidis and Lezgins. Yeah.
And show me a place where the Yazidis have not been persecuted. Good grief! Right. Everybody hates them. Seems like, and the ones that I've met in northern Iraq, the nicest people you could ever hope to meet.
And I think that there's this independence component between us and them, and I would compare ourselves to Jews as well, is that we stand alone. We've stood alone for thousands of years. Armenians go back to 4,000, the Roman times, and we keep our faith. We keep ourselves who we are. They haven't achieved in converting us. They haven't achieved in wiping away our culture. and we are successful everywhere we go. The 350,000 Armenians that were expelled from Azerbaijan when I was a child are all over the world, and they do well. I mean, they are very what's the
hardworking and diligent and successful. Yeah,
successful, and we but at the same time we don't forget who we are, and that's very threatening to a genocidal regime like Turkey that's really has aspirations for a third world war and to take over the world and take over the region and flex their muscles.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, if your own experience is any indication, you're certainly right about the success of Armenians all around the world. As you have come here and have gotten your citizenship and went to college and became a doctorate, got your doctorate, and written a book, and I would love to read it. So we want to be praying for Armenians, especially those in Artsakh, and looking for other ways that we can help. How can people help if they want to get involved?
Well, one, it is to communicate to your members of Congress that you have a minority Christian population in a region that's being attacked and literally killed off. And I would say, get involved with the Armenian communities where we have churches pretty much everywhere in this country. And one thing I will tell you, there are public servants. I mean, I'm on the city council in my little city in Westbrook, and we're trying to engage non-Armenians to join our ranks to speak the truth. But that would be anca.org has great resources where you can just click and they will connect you to your representatives. That's the Armenian National Committee of America. And just pray for us. We've survived so long. We've had so much pain. I think when you meet an Armenian, you will see that, our eyes are different, and they say they are sad Armenian eyes, and it's true. But we create art, we create music, and we pray, we continue to pray, and we build our churches. So in that one region, there are 373 historic churches That's
a very small area too, right?
It's tiny. Yes, it's. Yeah. Like I said, Armenia is like the size of Delaware, and you take maybe 10% of that.
That is very small. Well, thank you very much for coming on and helping to explain this and helping us to understand this better. We will be praying for Armenia, and I'd like to try to get in there and do some more reporting from there if I can. So
I would love to join you. I go 2-3 times a year due to COVID. I haven't been able to, but next time you go, let me know.
Fantastic. God bless you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
The Hot Zone is produced by Amy Holton and Live Fire Media. Copyright 2019.